What's up, planet Earth? My name is Adrian, and this is Books by Adrian. And this is Charlie, and he's going to help me with today's video, which is all about my favorite books and how they help me write my book. So let's take a look. Welcome back, everybody, and to you first-timers, welcome to the channel. Please consider subscribing. Just click the button down below and ring the notification bell so that you're alerted every time I post a brand new video. I post a video once a week, every week on Wednesdays. Don't forget to follow me on social media. To find all of my accounts, simply go to booksbyadrian.com, bookmark the website. The blog is there. You can get to the podcast from there. You can get to the YouTube channel from there, and all my social media, including Instagram, Tumblr, Twitter, Facebook. It's all on there. One-stop shop, booksbyadrian.com. Today's video is all about my top 10 favorite books and how they are inspiring me in writing my own book. Please keep in mind that if I were to include my all-time favorite series of books, it would be A Song of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin. I actually have those books in digital form, not in a hard copy, so they won't be featured in this video, but if they could be, they would be. All right, so let's get started. Charlie, please give me a book appropriate for what I just said. All right, so we are looking here at A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms by George R.R. Martin. This is the collection of his Dunk and Egg novellas. These are basically a prequel to the stories taking place in A Song of Ice and Fire, starting with Game of Thrones. It follows the adventures of Sir Duncan the Tall and his squire Egg. If you do not know who Egg is or why Sir Duncan the Tall is important, this is the book for you, because it's got some really great adventures. Some of the best fight sequences in Game of Thrones are on here. There's even a trial by combat where it's a trial by 7 on 7 in a trial by combat. Very, very epic stuff. Very, very cool. And if you're a fan of Brienne of Tarth, Sir Duncan is an ancestor of Brienne of Tarth. And you'll find some parallels to her story in this one. Highly recommended. Very, very good stuff. Now, how is it influencing my book? George R.R. Martin's writing style in general is an influence on my book. Every single one of my chapters is a different point of view character, alternating back and forth between all of my main characters, and that's something that I picked up from George R.R. Martin and his way of writing A Song of Ice and Fire. Now, that said, this particular book only goes through Sir Duncan's point of view, but the style of that point of view is still very much what I gravitate toward. We're talking about a third-person deep kind of style, where there is a narrator who is, explaining what's going on, but at the same time, that narrator is sort of embodying the emotions of the character, and you're also getting the character's thought processes. I'm just now noticing that on the back artwork here, I don't know if you can see that, but there's actually a dragon in the tree. I'd never noticed that before. Very cool. All right, so A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, collecting all of the Dunk and Egg novellas by George R.R. Martin. Charlie, give me another book. Hey, Charlie, say hi to everybody.
Hi.
All right, this is one of my favorites. The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. This is essentially the Jungle Book, but in a graveyard. It begins with a murderer who is taking the place of Shere Khan in this story, essentially killing an entire family and leaving a baby as an orphan, although he is trying to kill the baby as well. The baby, however, escapes and finds his way into a graveyard. That graveyard is, of course, home to a whole bunch of ghosts who take him into their world and take care of him. There's also a not quite living, not quite dead character who helps to take care of the baby as he grows up. And much like the Jungle Book has Mowgli learning how to communicate with the animals and even has him taking on several characteristics of the animals, the same is true for the child in this story, who takes on abilities and characteristics of ghosts. Great book, very creepy, dark, cool, awesome. Now, how is this influencing my story? Well, it definitely has this air, obviously, of the supernatural. You've got your ghosts and whatnot. Even the caretaker character seems to be maybe a vampire of some kind. And this is something that is influencing my story in the way that a lot of the characters are not quite what they seem. At least one in particular definitely has some supernatural abilities and communicates with the dead and whatnot. So heavily influenced by this book. Charlie, give me another book. Oh, that's a big one.
Yeah.
It's heavy.
Yeah, I was bigger when I was growing with my bigger books.
The Lord of the Rings. Classic, timeless. What is to be said about this series that hasn't already been said a million times before? At the end of the day, this is an influence on basically all of us. Anybody writing fantasy today is influenced by this series. What influences me the most from this series is the way that Tolkien sort of uses religion, in this case loose-based Christianity, as sort of the background to what's going on. Even though it's a whole new world with whole new characters and superpowered beings and whatnot, it all comes from a place of belief and faith and religion and gods and men. And that's very much present in my story, where religion has a very strong effect and influence on the characters and events. So, The Lord of the Rings, can't go wrong. Charlie, give me another book. Whoa, you okay?
Yeah.
Oh, another big one. Okay. This may very well be my favorite book of all time. This is American Gods by Neil Gaiman. A book about a man who gets out of prison to find out that his wife was unfaithful and is dead. And so everything that he had to live for is gone. And so what does one do when you have nothing to live for or nothing to believe in? Well, you get taken under by a man named Wednesday, who is fighting a war between the old gods and the new gods, and you get caught up in the middle. So that's what happens to Shadow in this story. Now, I said that we were doing a top 10. This is actually two books in one. As you can see on the bottom here, it is also holding Anansi boys. Anansi is a trickster god from Africa. Spoiler alert, he passes away during the events of American Gods. So, Anansi Boys is all about his two sons who didn't know necessarily that their father was a god. And when they find out that he's dead, they sort of have to come together and realize that maybe his powers are now their powers. Awesome stuff. American Gods is a must-read. How is it influencing my book? Well, the beginning of American Gods always stuck with me. Mainly because the very first page drops several F-bombs right away. And after the first chapter, there's a small interlude where the goddess of love, let's say, consumes a man in a very unique way. The rest of the book also includes several love scenes and whatnot. And so this is a very adult novel, and it treats its characters as real people. And that's something that Neil Gaiman shares with George R.R. Martin, where they include all aspects of humanity in their storytelling, including sex. So, huge influence on my book and how I will be depicting people in my story. Watchmen, again, classic. What's to say that hasn't been said before? And I see you guys sneering that it's a graphic novel, a comic book, and not. It's still a book. A book tells a story. This tells a story. This is one of my favorite books. Watchmen deconstructs the superhero genre. It tells the story of real people putting on costumes, fighting crime, and how such a lifestyle would affect them and their decision-making processes and their psyche, really. And let's be honest, If superheroes were real, they'd be crazy. So how this book influences mine is in the psychology of the characters. You know, how these experiences that they live through affect them and change them and make them into better or worse people. And how they then affect the world around them and influence events and whatnot around them. So awesome, awesome book, awesome story, and a great, great influence on my story. Another book. This is my favorite graphic novel of all time. This is The Long Halloween. It's my favorite Batman story. I read it all the time. I read it every Halloween. It follows the story of Batman on a murder mystery case that spans an entire year. There is a serial killer out there, and he is murdering people on holidays, one for every month of the year. 12 issues, 12 months, 12 murders, and in an awesome, awesome mystery. It also takes place very, very early in Batman's career. Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale, who created this book, refer to it as Batman Year 2. So it is very, very much an early Batman, still kind of figuring it out, but a very good detective. His first run-in with Catwoman is in here, the start of their relationship. If you liked Batman Begins or The Dark Knight, a lot of the influences came from, including the use of Falcone and Maroni in their stories. So how does this influence my novel? Well, it is a murder mystery following a serial killer. Spoiler alert, the murder mystery in my book follows a serial killer. So I definitely look to this book for inspiration on how to handle the case, the reveals, and where it all goes towards the end. Great read, highly recommend it. DMZ. I chose the first in the series just as an example, but this is a great, great series of comic books. DMZ follows the story of what happens when New York City is deemed a war zone and sort of left to its own devices. Kind of like No Man's Land in the Batman comics, if you are familiar. It follows the story of a journalist who is dropped into this war-torn New York City and has to sort of fend for himself. And he becomes part of the whole war and revolution and whatnot. So awesome, awesome story. This is a huge influence on mine because of the city itself. The city is a character in this story, and how the city has evolved is a huge part of this story. And that's part of my story as well. It all takes place on a place called the Spark, and the Spark has been there for about 300 years. And in that 300 years, a lot has happened and a lot has changed, and the citizens of the city have come to think of it in various loving and hateful ways. So this is a huge influence on how I depict the city in my book. You doing okay, buddy? You getting bored? No? No? Okay. We're almost done. Okay. All right. Give me that one.
Do you know about this one?
I will talk about that one very soon. Okay. This, The Sandman. All right. The entire series is one of my favorite books of all time. It was really, really hard choosing which one to use in the video. I went with Season of Mists. Season of Mists is the story of what happens when Dream, Morpheus, goes to hell to visit and possibly even release someone that he doomed to hell many, many years ago. However, when he gets there, he is surprised to find that the devil has decided to quit. He has released all the demons from hell. He has locked up all of the gates. He hands the keys over to Dream, and he pieces out. What do you do with hell when the devil quits? That's what this is all about. Again, religion, a huge part of it. Mythology, a huge part of it. Both of which heavily influenced my book. And the connection between Dream and the person that he has banished into this place and trying to get out is an incredibly compelling story. So this influences my book in the personal relationship between Dream and this person that he has banished.
I pick up the books.
And also in the way that these characters of religion and mythology come together all to vie for the keys to this mythical realm. So very, very awesome book. One of the best in the series, but I mean, that's like saying that basically every single book in this series is outstanding. Charlie, you want to give me the last book?
Okay.
Thanks. I don't think you're on camera anymore, buddy. Why don't you come over here?
Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. You're doing a great job. I'm so proud of you. All right. Identity Crisis, one of my favorite comic book stories of all time. This is the story of, again, a murder mystery. You'll sense a theme here. But it includes all of the characters in the DC universe, including all the big guns like Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman, etc. But also some lower level characters that you may not be familiar with, like Plastic Man, for example. So this is a great story. It has an awesome section in it where Batman is racing to save someone who is about to be murdered, who he vowed, this would never happen again. And he's got the pedal to the metal in the Batmobile, and he's racing through Gotham, and it's an incredibly harrowing sequence. Also, the murder mystery in here is really tightly written. I didn't see it coming when the reveal finally came out, and yet it made perfect sense, and that's really the best kind of murder mysteries. Again, a strong influence on my book and how I am writing the actual detective story and the mystery reveals. So highly recommended. Identity Crisis. Charlie wanted to share one of his books with us today. What do you got here, buddy?
I got a real star.
Oh, I love my daddy. This is a good one. So this is all about loving your dad and giving him cool little star gifts. Sometimes it's a shirt, sometimes it's a trophy, sometimes it's a starfish, or a medal, or a hat. This is a great read. We read it before bedtime a lot. You like that book?
Yeah.
Why do you like it?
Because a lot of times he has, but you get the babies.
Oh, it's got babies on it? That's why you like it?
Yes.
Yeah. High five. You did a good job.
You tiger.
Give me a real high five. All right, that's better. All right, get down. All right, everybody. Thanks again for coming to the channel. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave a comment down below with your favorite books and how they influence your writing. And don't forget to go to booksbyadrian.com, make it to all my social media from there. Follow me, subscribe. The podcast is up as well. Episode 2 of the podcast comes out next week, so stay tuned for that. Thanks again, stay safe, and we'll see you again next week on Wednesday.